There are rules in this house. Some are spoken, most aren't. You can feel them even before you understand them. You're here because you need this job. You're staying the night because you don't have a choice. And you're beginning to realize the people who live here don't think of you as a guest or an employee. They think of you as theirs.
You're listening to Tonight's Terror, original horror stories to hear in the dark. Subscribe and share if you're a fan. And now, tonight's story.
The Rawlings house was always dimly lit. Even during the brightest hours of the morning, daylight only thinned and settled in patches across the floor. In the late afternoon and evenings of autumn, the Rawlings favored lighting that was more suggestion than useful illumination. Soft pools of amber from table lamps and sconces rather than overhead lights. The decor was modern, polished surfaces, framed abstract art, clean lines, but the dark wood molding and heavy doors made the place feel older than everything inside it. The property was large, but not remote. The house sat in the middle of an affluent neighborhood where every street boasted wide front lawns and deep backyards. Inside the house, Anna always wondered if she had ever cleaned well enough in those dark corners and beneath the hanging cabinets of the kitchen. She had been hired as a housekeeper and part-time nanny about 4 months ago, and in many ways she liked the job. The family paid well, the baby was easy, and the routine suited her. But whether she enjoyed it or not didn't really matter. She was in the United States on a work visa, and keeping this position meant keeping her status. Losing it meant losing everything. Anna sent money home to her parents every month. While she knew they were grateful and that they missed her, the idea of returning home because her visa failed would break their hearts. Autumn had settled in across the neighborhood. The leaves outside had turned on most of the trees, but not yet fallen. As Anna walked from her car to the front door, she wondered if she'd be asked to stay the night this week. She typically watched the baby, Emzy, only in the afternoons. Sometimes the family asked her to take care of Emzy in the mornings as well. On those occasions, they paid her extra to stay the night and be there as soon as Emzy woke. She had her own room, a comfortable guest room, and a bathroom down the hall that no one else ever used. A part of Anna dreaded being asked to stay over. It was another reminder that the Rawlings seemed to believe they owned her. She was told how to dress, where in the house she could and could not go, even what tone of voice to use when she spoke to the baby. She didn't dare speak her native language in their presence. It was clear how that would be received. But the practical side of her knew it was best for her to stay the night as often as possible. It helped her budget. She was paid even while she slept. She ate dinner at the house, and she could turn down the heat in her own apartment while she was away. Anything to save where she could. Anna softly closed the nursery door. It was 4 p.m., and Emzy would likely sleep until 5:30 or 6. She smoothed the front of her pants and tugged her shirt back into place. Anna knew women who worked in similar positions in other houses. Other families seemed more relaxed about uniforms, but the Rawlings paid better. In the kitchen, she began preparing dinner, her last task of the day. Mr. Rawlings was home. His work was a mystery to Anna. He seemed to make his own hours, and the few times he'd spoken about it, he sounded like an engineer. Other times, he would go on a philosophical rant that made him sound more like an ethics professor. As she sliced carrots on the vast marble kitchen counter, Mr. Rawlings read in the living room. She stole glances at him from time to time. He sat with his legs crossed, scowling down at the book in his lap, as if the author had challenged him. Since the beginning of her time in the house, she had felt him watching her, sometimes seen him watching her. Her friend, Salim, had warned her to be wary of creeps in that line of work. Anna had considered that, but she had ultimately dismissed the idea that Mr. Rawlings was a pervert. The way he stared at her wasn't lustful. but it did feel proprietary. Did he suspect her of stealing? Taking what was his? Though she didn't dwell on it, deep down she believed that Mr. Rawlings thought she was his. The front door clicked open and closed again. Mrs. Rawlings, clad in a fine white parka and fluffy fur hat, cruised into view. Dora was a strange woman. She scarcely spoke, and when she did, it was little more than a whisper, as if she had to push the words out with effort. Many days she would tell Anna she was going out walking, always in the same flat tone, then slip noiselessly through the door and vanish for hours, as if the walk itself were an appointment she could not miss. Once, Anna had called Mr. Rawlings because she was so concerned. Dora had taken Emsie, bundled to her chest, told Anna they were going walking, and didn't return for 6 hours. Mr. Rawlings had answered in tones of annoyance and asked Anna why she was keeping track of his wife's whereabouts. Anna never knew what Dora did on those long walks, only that she never came back looking like she'd missed home. Now, Dora stood on the other side of the counter, examining the ingredients Anna was assembling. "Ratatouille for dinner tonight," Anna ventured. "Baby Emsie is asleep." She nodded to the humming baby monitor beside her. Dora glanced up as if surprised at Anna's voice. "Yes," she said softly. The light, already scant in this house, was dimming outside by then. Anna preheated the oven and began clearing the kitchen. Dinner would be heated up after she'd left for the day. She kept her head down as Dora drifted across the room and laid her jacket and hat across the couch. Anna knew the Rawlings liked to have private conversations in her presence, another clue that she was a piece of furniture or an appliance to them. They lowered their voices and stood close to one another as they spoke. Without trying to eavesdrop, Anna picked up scraps of their exchange. "Yes, I think that's fine," Mr. Rawlings murmured. "Now?" Dora asked him. Anna saw Mr. Rawlings look over his wife's shoulder toward the kitchen. She busied herself gathering leftover ingredients and sealing them in plastic containers. As she shuffled items in the refrigerator to make space, she heard the door off the living room open. It was the entrance to Mrs. Rawlings' music room. Or at least that's what Anna had surmised. The room was kept locked, and it was one of the few places in the house she'd been told not to enter or clean. She'd always assumed it was filled with expensive, fragile instruments, and that's why it stayed shut. From time to time, Mrs. Rawlings would already be in the room when Anna arrived, and the strains of a string instrument drifted through the closed door. Having finished stowing the leftovers, Anna stood up straight and swung the refrigerator door closed. As she did, she saw Mr. Rawlings pull a key from his pocket and place it in the pages of a book. He tucked the book into a space on the shelves beside the music room door. It had a dark, wine-colored spine. The book he'd been reading lay in the chair. It was black. He turned and noticed Anna. He smiled tightly, the first time she'd ever seen him smile. She wondered if he was happy that his wife had survived another long walk in the cold. Anna's apartment was warm when she got home. A different kind of warmth than the Rawlings house. Yellow light she controlled herself, the heat coming on when she wanted it. She cooked a simple dinner, vegetables and rice with a little chicken, nothing elaborate, but something that felt clean and good. She ate at her small table, scrolling the news on her phone between bites. Later, she video chatted with her mother. Her mother's face, slightly pixelated, filled the screen, and the kitchen behind her was bright and familiar. They talked about small things, weather, errands, a cousin's birthday, and Anna did most of the asking, as always. She kept her voice light and didn't mention anything about the Rawlings. When her mother said goodnight and blew a kiss at the camera, Anna felt the familiar pull of home in the center of her chest. She curled up on the couch with her blanket and opened the book everyone seemed to be reading that month. A romance set in Scotland, more dramatic than she usually liked, but pleasant enough. The chapters moved quickly, and she enjoyed the comfort of seeing characters talk openly about what they wanted, how they felt, without worrying about how they sounded or what someone else might think of them. Eventually, her eyes drifted from the page. She stared at the wall across from her, thinking again of Mr. Rawlings, the key in the book, and the smile he'd given her. It was tight, direct, not pleased, though. And the hushed conversation that had preceded it, just before Mrs. Rawlings slipped into the music room, replayed in her mind. Anna told herself she was being foolish. She'd worked for them for months without any trouble. Still, she pulled her blanket a little tighter around her shoulders and tried to sink back into her book. Tomorrow, she'd return to the house. She would cook and clean and watch MZ. It should have felt ordinary. Instead, the thought of Mr. Rawlings' smile hung over her. She read the same paragraph 3 times and couldn't remember a word of it. Anna woke to a text message from Dora Rawlings. "Pack a bag for tonight." Then, in a separate message, emphasizing its afterthought nature, "Please." "Fine," Anna said to the gray morning light of her empty bedroom. She slowly rose and began her day. The day was long and still. She tidied and cleaned the house all morning without encountering either Mr. or Mrs. Rawlings. When Anna picked MZ up from daycare, she noticed her check engine light on her dashboard was on. "Merde," she grumbled, backing out of her parking space. When she carried the baby through the Rawlings' front door, she was shocked to see Mrs. Rawlings standing just inside. Anna flinched and clutched MZ instinctively. Without a word, Dora took MZ from Anna's arms and shuffled off down the hall. Anna was growing accustomed to Dora's eccentricities, but she'd nearly jumped out of her skin when she'd found her standing inches from her face the moment she walked in. Alone in the entryway, Anna hung her jacket and took off her boots. She took out her phone and texted Salim to ask for the name of the mechanic she used. It wouldn't be long before the check engine light turned into a grinding sound or a rhythmic clank. "Anna!" It was the impossible whisper shout that Dora used when she needed to be heard from a distance. Anna climbed the stairs to the nursery and took MZ from her mother. The baby was already beginning to doze. As Dora padded down the stairs, Anna carried MZ to the rocking chair. She dimmed the lights and rocked until she heard the steady breathing of sleep. With gentle precision, she laid MZ in her crib and snuck out of the room. Anna reached the bottom step of the staircase and glanced around to see if she was alone. She relished brief moments on the job with no tasks and a sleeping baby. The entryway was quiet. The kitchen and living room beyond were empty. She walked slowly to the kitchen. She could grab the baby monitor and retreat to the guest room to read or maybe nap. As she turned the plastic dial that powered on the miniature speaker, something moved in the periphery of her vision. She turned and squinted into the gloom of the living room. At first, she couldn't see much of anything. The house's customary shadows were pronounced in the autumn afternoons. Then, something rose from the couch like a ghost. Anna nearly screamed but swallowed the sound as she made out the spectral form of Mrs. Rawlings. She was draped in a white knit blanket. As was so often the case, she moved and looked about as though she was the only person in the room. Anna wasn't sure if she'd been noticed, so she remained still. Mrs. Rawlings moved to the closed music room door and unlocked it. As the door swung open, Anna tilted her head to gain a better view inside. She wouldn't want to be seen snooping in the room she was told not to enter, but it was clear to her that Dora was in her own world. The room was dimly lit. The light pulsed and flickered as though a candle was burning somewhere inside. As Dora moved beyond the threshold, Anna saw a man, presumably Mr. Rawlings. She hadn't seen him all day. He was sitting in a high-backed upholstered chair. Only the side of his head and shoulder were visible. He didn't move or react when Dora entered. Then the door swung shut again with a push from Dora's hand. Before Anna could recover from the shock Dora had given her, rising noiselessly from the couch. The cello's hum began to sift into the living room from beyond the closed door. Mrs. Rawlings is quite talented, she thought, closing her hand around the baby monitor. Anna held the speaker to her ear and heard only the reassuring shush of the white noise machine in Emzy's room. "Duérmete, pequeña," she whispered. If Emzy took a good nap, Anna might be able to relax for an hour or more. She paced to the stairs and began up. As she reached the first landing, the front door opened, and a frigid gust of air rushed in. Anna turned and saw Mr. Rawlings step inside, red-faced and bleary-eyed from the cold. "Anna, hello," he said, two separate thoughts. Anna stared at Mr. Rawlings, then to the living room where she'd just seen him through the music room door. Her confusion must have shown on her face. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "Is everything okay?" Anna regained herself and managed, "Yes, sir. Just heading up to check on the baby." "Mm-hmm," was his reply before he stepped farther into the foyer. He turned his head, already hearing the cello. Anna turned and climbed the stairs. Anna lay on the guest bed with her eyes closed. Her book was open and lying across her face like a sleep mask. She couldn't stop replaying the scene she'd just witnessed. Who was the man in the music room? Was Mrs. Rawlings having an affair? Anna barely believed the thought even as it crossed her mind. Impossible. Dora floated through the house like she barely knew anyone was there. She didn't seem capable of wanting someone. But if she had, was Mr. Rawlings discovering it downstairs right now? That night, the cello's low drone drifted up from the locked room to Anna's bedroom. She couldn't understand how Dora could play so long. It didn't sound like she ever stopped to rest. By 2 a.m., Anna was convinced that either a stereo was playing the music or her employer was having a manic episode. Was Mr. Rawlings there listening? Was the other man gone? Was this some kind of sick punishment after Mr. Rawlings found out the man was in that room with his wife? Eventually, exhaustion swept Anna away, and she managed a few hours of dreamless sleep. At 5 a.m., the baby monitor crackled to life and Emzy's cries started the day. Anna watched her employers closely that day. Her head pounded from lack of sleep. She desperately wanted coffee, but knew she'd only need the bathroom. And that wasn't easy to manage with Emzy. Once, she'd sheepishly asked Mr. Rawlings to keep an eye on the baby for a moment while she used the bathroom. He had looked at Anna like she'd spit on him. Mercifully, the Rawlings announced they'd be visiting Dora's mother that afternoon. Anna could go home after putting the baby down for a midday nap. As she donned her coat and boots, Anna pondered what the family gathering might look like at Dora's mother's house. A silent house with white walls was the only image that came to mind. It was 4 days later that Anna's little car made good on its check engine threat. She was on her way to work, less than a block from the Rawlings house, when an angry metallic bark rattled up from the hood. Her stomach tightened, and she thought of her bank balance. $240, all she had until next month. Mrs. Rawlings had texted again the night before, instructing Anna to bring an overnight bag today. At least this week's pay would have some overtime in it. The car lurched into the Rawlings driveway and shuddered as Anna cut the engine. She rested her forehead against the steering wheel for a moment. She had no plan for the car, but the clock told her that in 2 minutes, Mrs. Rawlings would be in the kitchen, sipping ice water and eyeing her watch. From where she parked, Anna could see straight into the music room window. The blinds were open, but the room was dark. She thought again of the strange man in the chair. In all her months working for this family, she had never seen anyone come or go other than Mr. and Mrs. Rawlings, and Emzy, of course. By noon, Mr. Rawlings appeared, apparently home from whatever work he did when he was away from the house. His interests were so unpredictable that Anna could never guess his profession. One day he might be reading the Wall Street Journal, and the next an ornate leather-bound volume. Once, she had risked opening one of those old books when he'd left it unattended. De Occulta Philosophia by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. She had remembered the title and searched it online that night. It was full of strange theories about time, substances, rituals. She'd had nightmares afterwards. Moons hanging low in the sky, clumps of hair pressed into wax, music that keened and circled in her head. At one point, she remembered seeing seams running across a human shape, fine and branching like veins, before she jolted awake, drenched in sweat. "Anna," Mr. Rawlings said, in a tone that made it clear she was not being greeted, but summoned. "What's wrong with your car? Dora said it was coughing terribly when you arrived." "I don't know, Mr. Rawlings," Anna replied. "The check engine light has been on. This morning, all sorts of noise." "Let me have a friend look at it. He owns a few repair shops," he said. "No, Mr. Rawlings, I couldn't ask you to do that. You're very busy." "You're not asking me. I'm recommending it," he said firmly. "We need you to have reliable transportation, Anna." All at once she understood. He wasn't offering to help. He was annoyed. That's why there was no warmth in his voice. He was scolding her. Her cheeks burned with shame and anger. Then her car's check engine light blazed in her mind. She took a breath. "Thank you, Mr. Rawlings, that would be a big help," she said, forcing a demure smile. He stared down at her silently. Without quite knowing how, she recognized what he expected. She reached into her pocket and withdrew the car keys. Mr. Rawlings held out his hand, and she dropped them into his palm. It was dark outside when Anna warmed the plate of leftovers in the microwave. The Rawlings had thanked her curtly for staying the night and told her they'd all be out for the evening. They planned to meet friends who had a baby the same age as Emsie. Anna wished them a good night and waited in the kitchen as they bustled around the entryway getting ready to leave. Anna was looking forward to some time to herself with the house empty. She sat at the kitchen counter, a fork in one hand and the other holding her book open. The Rawlings had left almost an hour ago, and she didn't expect to see them again before going to bed. In fact, she intended to avoid seeing them again tonight. As she ran water over the plate, she heard something. She tilted her head toward the sound and turned off the faucet. Whatever it was had stopped. It had been quick and high-pitched, but she hadn't been able to make it out over the sound of the water. She stood silently for a moment, waiting for the sound to come again. The living room was empty and dark. The clock in the front hall ticked softly. When nothing happened, she began loading the dishwasher. At the instant her plate and bowl clattered into place in the dishwasher, the sound came again. This time, she caught a scrap of it. It sounded like a baby's cry. She was sure of it. She stared at the closed music room door. It had come from that room. It was a staccato yelp, muffled, but she felt certain she'd heard it. Her mouth went dry. Had Anna misunderstood the family's plans? Was Emsie here at the house instead of at the restaurant with her parents? It seemed impossible. Anna would never miss an instruction like that. But then again, she was struggling to recall the moment they had left the house. Had Dora been holding the baby? Anna couldn't say. She half jogged to the music room and turned on a light. She leaned close to the door, her forehead nearly resting against the wood. "Hello?" she ventured, then held her breath. No one answered. Just as she was ready to step back from the door, she heard a creak. The sound of wood, furniture, flooring, protesting under weight. Anna couldn't understand what was happening. If Emsie was in the house, why would she be in that room? The image of the baby lying helplessly on the music room floor in the dark flashed in her mind. She reached to the bookshelf and quickly found the wine-colored book she knew to be the key's hiding place. Anna turned the book on its side and shook gently. A key slipped from between the pages and hit the floor with a sharp ring. The key slid into the lock easily, and Anna opened the door a crack. Before stepping in, she considered her options. If the room was empty, she would lock it again, and the Rawlings would never know she'd been inside. If Emsey was there, she would face an uncomfortable conversation with her employers when they returned. She pushed the door open farther. Light from the kitchen spilled in, illuminating a narrow slice of the room beyond. "Nina," Anna whispered into the dark. She'd never been in the room before and didn't know where to find a light switch. Anna pulled out her phone and switched on the flashlight. She held it in front of her like a torch and stepped inside. She scanned the floor in front of her. No Emsey. She turned the flashlight toward the corner and saw Mrs. Rawlings' cello, propped neatly on a stand. She swept the flashlight back toward the center of the room, and the scream was already tearing out of her before she understood what she was seeing. A figure sat in a high-backed chair, grotesque and waxy, covered in fine lines that crisscrossed every inch of the body. It looked like a patchwork of seams on a crude quilt. The head was bowed, the eyes closed. The gaping mouth was a toothless black void. It was utterly still, like a posed model rather than something alive. It didn't look outdated. It looked out of time, as if it belonged to a century that had tried to study the human body without concern for ethics or real science. Anna staggered backward, colliding with the cello. It tumbled to the floor with a hollow protest behind her. Her breath came fast and rasping. She fumbled to right the instrument without taking her eyes from the thing in the center of the room. What was it? Model? Was it made of wax? Why would the Rawlings have this? Why would anyone? She stared as long as she could bear, which wasn't long. She was waiting for it to move. A finger twitching, an eyelid quivering. Nothing. Anna determined it was not alive. It was a doll, a waxwork, a mannequin. Carefully, without turning her back on it, she sidestepped out of the room. As she slid the book, key stowed inside, back into its space on the shelf, she noted the title, Picatrix. She didn't see an author, but she did notice a pentagram emblazoned on the leather of the back cover. Headlights swept across the room through the front window. The Rawlings were returning. Anna ran to the stairs. She paused at the front door to catch a glimpse through the sidelight window. With immense relief, she saw Dora step out and open the back passenger door. A moment later, she lifted Emsey from the car's interior. Anna bounded up the stairs and was in her room before the front door opened. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears as she paced the room. She locked the bedroom door. As her breathing began to slow, she heard footsteps on the stairs. She knew the house well. Whoever it was had stopped at the landing. Anna stepped close to the door and pressed her ear to the wood. Mr. Rawlings' voice floated up to her, muffled but clear enough. "I don't know." And then a pause. She could have. The footsteps padded away back down the stairs. Anna exhaled and let herself fall heavily onto the bed. She lay for a few minutes, considering her options. She realized she had none. No matter the strange things she'd seen, or the stranger things the Rawlings might be doing, she was stuck. She had no car. She was scheduled to work the following morning. She was going to have to spend the night in this house. After tonight, if she really wanted to, she could start looking for other work. But it had taken months to find this position. The threat of being forced out of the country always loomed like a distant, dark cloud. Anna didn't leave her room, even to use the bathroom. She sheltered under the comforter and scrolled through unappealing job posts on her phone, always listening for movement in the hall. Eventually, her eyelids grew heavy with sleep, and she nodded off. The cello music woke her. Anna wondered how long it had been going on. Her phone read 2:40 a.m. She blinked into the darkness of the bedroom and swallowed a curse at being woken. She knew she might be kept up the rest of the night. More pressing was her need for the bathroom. She hadn't worked up the courage to open the door before falling asleep, but now the need was growing urgent. Anna padded silently to the door of her room and unlocked it. The lock popped as she turned the knob, and she cringed. Quickly, she understood that little could be heard anywhere in the house over the bellow of Dora's playing. The music might have been beautiful, if it weren't so out of place and manic in the dead of the night. Anna found her way to the bathroom in the dark, as she'd done many times before. After using the toilet, she washed her hands and cupped water into her mouth. There was no way she'd entertain a trip down to the kitchen for a glass. She didn't want to think about what she'd find down there, or who. Keeping her eyes on the floor to avoid a stumble in the dark, Anna nearly ran into the door of her room. It was closed. In a flash of panic, she seized the handle and found it stuck fast. Someone had shut and locked her room while she was in the bathroom. She whirled around, ready to face whoever might be waiting. But she was alone. She stood, rocking from foot to foot in the dark. She again assembled her list of options, and again found none. As she began to acknowledge the reality of her situation, she heard heavy footfalls on the stairs. Mr. Rawlings was coming up. She couldn't get into her room, couldn't drive home, couldn't quit, couldn't face him, and whatever bizarre game was being played in this house. She could see her employer's shadow cast on the stairwell wall. "Anna," Mr. Rawlings called out from the landing. She didn't move, didn't make a sound. "Anna, come," he shouted. His voice wasn't panicked or unhinged. It was certain. That felt worse. Her face grew hot, and a bead of sweat formed on the back of her neck. Anna began slowly down the hallway and then the stairs. She rounded the corner of the stairwell, expecting to see Mr. Rawlings' inscrutable face, but found no one. The cello was louder now, louder than any time she'd heard Dora practice before. The music was hectic and rough. When Anna reached the bottom of the stairs, she found the kitchen and dining room flooded with light. She'd never seen it so illuminated, even in the middle of the day. The lights blazed brighter than she thought they possibly could. It looked like a completely different house. Mr. Rawlings was sitting in his reading chair beside the music room door. The door was open, and the cello music poured out, along with a feverish, flickering light. He stood and beckoned Anna. "Come," he said again. He was raising his voice to be heard over the music. Despite its volume, something like warmth in his tone shocked Anna. Then she looked at his face. He was smiling. A broad grin was smeared across his face. Anna thought he looked genuinely happy. This did nothing to assuage the horror climbing up her back as she approached the living room. "Mrs. Rawlings' cello is miraculous, isn't it?" he said, with pride in his voice. "I'm sure you've heard her practicing." Anna stepped closer to the door, staring into the low light within. She didn't notice Mr. Rawlings move behind her. He spoke again. "Well, practicing isn't the right word. It's a bit more of a performance, a contribution to the project we're working on." Anna finally found her voice. "What project?" she stammered. "I think you know," he said into her ear. He was close to her now. "Just look." The music stimulates him somehow. Learning that was a complete coincidence. Try as I may, I don't understand it. Then, two things happened. First, Mr. Rawlings' hands fell on her shoulders and gripped her firmly. Before she could twist away, motion in the music room drew her eye and she couldn't look away. Something was coming into view in the doorway. The music played on, frantic and wild. The thing Anna had seen in the chair was standing. It was walking slowly into the light. No strings or wires moved it. It was untethered and horribly real. As it stepped through the door into the living room, she saw the tortured seams stretched over the waxy flesh. In the light, she could see it was a jaundiced yellow, like pus. The eyelids were open now, but there was nothing inside. Anna screamed and tried desperately to wrench herself free from Mr. Rawlings' hands, but he held her in place. The creature walked slowly, but ceaselessly. It was almost on her now. Over Anna's screams, Mr. Rawlings shouted, "He was our gardener. We hate to lose good help." Anna's eyes rolled back and she fainted in terror. Mr. Rawlings let her slump to the floor in front of him. The yellow wax man bent awkwardly and began to pull Anna along the floor to the music room door. One of her arms was outstretched behind her as she slid. As she disappeared into the dark, one hand seemed to clutch at the door frame before slipping inside. Snow was piled high outside the big white house. A woman jogged by, her breath forming little clouds with each exhale. If she paused on the sidewalk and listened, she might have heard the faint hum of a cello. An ancient Christmas tune, Coventry Carol. Inside, Mr. Rawlings sat in his reading chair, a heavy book in his lap. He nodded his head slowly to the music drifting through the open door beside him. He stood and shelved the book. The music room was lit by the glow of a single candle. Dora labored at her cello in the darkness of a corner. Beyond Mr. Rawlings' form in the doorway sat two figures whose faces were in shadow, a man and a woman. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. From behind the door, in the tone of a teacher, his voice intoned, "Now, let's begin."
Thanks for listening to tonight's Terror. If you enjoyed the story, follow, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps new listeners find the show. Visit tonightsterror.com for all our stories, merch, and more. Until next time, sleep well.